I'm Delaney George, Vice President at the Behringer Group. For over 45 years, we've been helping some of the greatest families in America maximize financial objectives while minimizing family conflict. Today, I'll be sitting down with our founder, Ted Behringer, and our president, Chris Behringer, and asking them some insightful questions and getting their honest, unedited answers. Now on to our first question. How would you explain our keep, sell, grow analysis to someone unfamiliar with it?
Thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for being here, Ted. I think this is a great format and going to be a lot of fun today. We help business owners determine what's best for the future of their company, and oftentimes business owners don't understand all of their options. Obviously, they can keep their company, they can grow it, they can sell it. We like to bring things as simple as possible, but within each of those verticals, there's hundreds of different areas and options that the business owner has. For instance, if they want to keep their company, are they going to let the next generation run? Are they going to have a CFO as a bridge until the next generation is ready? How do they prepare for that? We like to create a matrix for the client, walk them through all of the different things they have available to them, and find the area that fits their personal situation best.
So, Delaney, all businesses are in transition. They're either going to go to the next generation or they're going to be sold to an outside third party. Business owners are often so focused on what they have to do day to day to run the company and make profits that they don't think about these long-term issues. The other thing that they don't always realize is there's a federal estate tax ready to grab 40% of the value of their company. I would tell you that business owners benefit greatly from taking a look at all of their options, evaluating what makes the most sense. Oftentimes they're not sure. So we like to set them up so that if they keep them, we minimize or eliminate the federal estate tax because we think it's a voluntary tax. If on the other hand they decide to sell, we now no longer have a way to discount the value of the company on the sale price, so we want to do some estate planning in advance, and we want to find the best buyer. But not only do we want to find the best buyer for value, we want to find the best buyer for the culture of the company and the families that they have worked for that company for so many years on that transition. We're one of the few investment bankers that care more about how this all works out than just getting the top dollar.
What do you think is the best approach to family conflict?
So Delaney, we've been doing this for over 40 years. And probably we've been in business this long because of family conflict. And unfortunately, it oftentimes comes down to dollars and cents. You have active family members in the business that are paid salaries and bonuses. You have inactive family members that rely on dividends from the company. So our experience is to work with both the inactives and the actives to find out what their financial needs are and what the business can afford, and try to make everybody comfortable with a policy. Our simple solution is often a third, a third, a third. A third of the profits stay in the company, a third pay taxes, and a third go out to shareholders for their benefits. Along the way, we make sure we have an outside third party analyze the compensation of the active members to confirm that they're getting paid fair market value.
Thank you, Delaney. I think a specific question and this specific topic, it really is a function of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The best way to tackle family conflict is before it begins with appropriate governing documents. Family governance is massively important. Are the trust documents clear? Are the board directives clear? Has everything been explained to the next generation? Is everything transparent? There's a lot of different methodologies and things that a good governed company does before the conflict arises, and we can certainly help any business set up those documents and procedures.
When do you think is the best time to start succession planning?
Well, Delaney, the best time to start succession planning is today. Certainly, succession planning properly done is going to change and morph as a company changes and morphs. Maybe for instance, today you have one child within the business, but 5 years from now you have a second enters. Things would certainly have to change. But unfortunately, we live in a world where catastrophic events happen, And having the documents and the things all set up for your circumstances today is critical for the long-term success of a business. And we would certainly suggest, if you have an in-place succession plan and you like it, you evaluate it at least every 18 months. And that's certainly something here at the Behringer Group that we've done for a lot of different families. One thing that really resonates with our client base is we run what's called a fire drill. We look at all of your current documents and we tell you three things. What do you have? What do you think you have? And what should you have? And amazingly, they're rarely ever the same. And to start that process today, we would view as best practice. Thank you for the question, Delaney.
So succession planning, Delaney, is really complicated, and it evolves. Because when you start a company, oftentimes you have young children, and as they grow, they get interested in the company, and perhaps they want to come in, maybe they don't. And what we found is we've worked for multiple companies that have been around for over 100 years, that have gone through multiple generations. That doesn't happen easily. It requires constant thinking by the founder as to what his long-term goals are and who is best equipped. In some of those 100-year companies, we've actually had non-family members run the business for a while children, grandchildren, and children of the founder are trained into being able to take over the company. But in the end, these 100-year-plus companies are incredibly valuable to America and the American economy. Succession planning is key to getting a company to last through generations.
Which do you think is more challenging, a management buyout or a partner family buyout?
Well, there's zero question that they're both challenging, Delaney, and I'm not sure I can handicap it. We've done multiple of both, and the issues involved in both are both emotional and factual. It all starts with evaluation. It's not just what's the company worth, but what can the company afford in transitioning from the current owners to have the management team or family members buy it out. There are tax consequences, estate tax consequences that have to be thoroughly valued before you determine that. So I would just tell you, from our standpoint, having done multiple of these, they're both fun, they're exciting, and they enhance the business long-term succession.
I think on this one, Ted's answer was pretty close to perfect. The most challenging situations are the ones that are emotionally charged, and there's areas beyond the valuation of the business being discussed and negotiated. And certainly that dynamic can exist in both a family buyout or a management buyout. Management buyout, if the management team has been there for 20 plus years, there's going to be a lot of issues beyond just the business, and the skeletons are there. And, but either way, I think on the metrics, Ted hit it pretty well.
What would you say to a client to explain that TBG offers a broader portfolio selection than larger firms, which are often restricted to proprietary products?
That's a great question, Delaney. First of all, we're unencumbered by custodian, so we can utilize any custodian. Other advisors, will typically have their own platform of money managers and investments that they're recommending to clients. We certainly have our own platform, but in addition to that, we utilize every platform of every major advisor out there. We are completely unlimited, and when a new client comes into the Behringer Group, we take a full look at the current portfolio, and we're not just looking at it for tax consequences, although that's extremely important, but typically there's not going to be any portfolio that we find that don't have 3 to 4 top-tier investment money managers currently in play, and we'll certainly find a way to take those best ideas, incorporate them for that client going forward. And if the ideas are really good and they have these incredible money managers, we'll make relationships with them and broaden that out to other clients of ours.
So Delaney, the people that we work with either own a company, and we constantly tell them they need a separate asset base. Makes it easier for them to transfer the business to the next generation. It makes it easier for them when business times are tough and they can't draw dollars out of the company. So they need a separate asset base. If they sell the company, now all of a sudden they're in a whole new world. They're in a new business. The investments are now everything for their lifestyle. And what we've learned is there's no one answer that fits one individual client. You have to be willing to look at multiple investment advisors and make sure that somebody oversees the entire program to be certain that your objectives are met and you haven't taken extraordinary risk. In either case, you have a lot of risk with your business, and so you have to have a very conservative, logical portfolio that makes money but is not dramatically risky. Or if you sold your company, you've already won the game. So it's not your goal to now triple it. Your goal is to preserve the assets for future generations and for your own lifestyle. Our goal is to sit there in the view as if we're the business owner himself and do what we do professionally for them and their family, and not try to enhance it with proprietary products or other solutions that oftentimes don't add value to the portfolio.
What do you think is the most common misconception about employee stock ownership plans?
So employee stock ownership plans are one of the most talked about solutions for business owners to transfer equity to employees, and one of the least used. And the reason is they're complicated with lots of regulations, and they're complicated with potential valuation issues in the entire program of the business, because you have to use fair market value, which indicates what it totally is worth on an estate tax return. So the whole point of an employee stock ownership plan is that the right answer? Because it's certainly a great tool in the perfect situation, but there are also employee profits interest plans and employee long-term incentive plans. So getting equity to employees without hurting the personal planning of the owner is critical. ESOPs are one really good answer where it fits, but somebody has to take a look at all the options, not just have, if it's a nail, it must be a hammer to hit it. You've got to have multiple answers to solve that problem.
An ESOP is a fantastic tool. The tax benefits are great. It's a way to keep it in the family. You know, we know a lot of closely held businesses and view their employees as family, and it's a deeper relationship. But we would caution anyone before they enter into an ESOP to understand that much like going public, you now have a fiduciary responsibility to the ESOP. There are rules and regulations that you need to follow. And you know, if you sell over 50% of your company to the ESOP, even if you retain the CEO role, it's no longer your business, and it needs to be operated taking into account the needs and the objectives of the ESOP.
What strategy would you recommend for a business owner of a growing, successful private company who wants to sell 49% while retaining control?
That's a great question, Delaney. Minority buyouts have become a lot more popular over the past decade. I would think it would really be dependent upon what the company does and what type of partner they're looking for. You know, if the objective is to go public in 5 to 10 years and it's a technology company, I would certainly look to venture capital money. If it's a cash flowing company where they don't need a lot of board level help, I would probably seek out a family office partner. You know, there's certainly capital available for the type of company that you described, and I think the owner of that business just needs to be very, very careful of who they partner with, understand their own objectives and what they want the business to be in 3, 5, and 10 years, and select the appropriate capital to fit those objectives. So,
Delaney, that's a great question. And for many years, that was never an option. There were no buyers for 49% where you kept control. Even today, that's a hard sell. Most buyers really would like control at some level. But there are investors out there, both in the private equity world and the family office world, as Chris pointed out. And don't forget, family offices have become truly a private equity mecca for people looking to sell minority interest in their business, because the family office group tends not to want to run the business. So I would tell them to really define what their goal is, what they're looking for, and why do they want a partner other than just getting liquidity. Because just owning majority control, there still will be restrictions on them having a partner. So picking the correct partner is the most important part of that process.
How have liquidity alternatives for business owners changed in the 21st century?
Boy, what another great question, Delaney. Where do you get all these questions from? Good for you. So the alternatives are many. Many of them did exist in the past. They've gotten broader. Companies can go public to get liquidity, and we've seen some of our clients over the years have gone public and done exceptionally well. Private equity has now gone beyond what anybody ever envisions it to be. There are private equity options from almost all businesses, all verticals going out there. So that's a change. Private equity evolution. In 1980s, when we were first starting, if you went into a room and asked people if they were going to sell their company or not, 90% of them were saying no, was going to pass it on. And at that point in time, there were Colbert Kravises of the world and other private equity groups, and suddenly business owners had options. Those options have only expanded in many, many ways and with many options. So I would just tell you that any business owner interested in liquidity needs to get somebody that doesn't just have a single answer. They need to look at what are the multiple ways to raise capital, get money, sell interest in my company or 100% of the company. Where's the best alternative, not just for me, but also for the employee group that spent all those years helping them build that business?
That's a great question, Delaney. In my experience, at least over the past 5 years, is that banking institutions financing institutions have become a lot more creative, loaning against balance sheets, allowing business owners to take the money and put it in the pocket, not personally signed, depending on the cash flows and the balance sheet of the business, of course. But there's ways to get cash in your capital and have the company repay the loan without personal guarantees. And I think the covenants have certainly lightened up on this on this avenue over the last several years. And it's something that I might encourage business owners to take a look at, to take some chips off the table.
What do you think is the most effective way for middle market business owners to raise capital without diluting equity?
I think first you have to define equity between voting and non-voting shares. To raise capital without diluting any equity, it's going to be your financing opportunities, and it's going to be traditional debt, via your banks, even mezzanine. Even mezzanine lenders are going to want warrants, and it's going to dilute your equity to some degree. However, we would typically recommend a business owner, before they're looking to raise funds, to split their shares into two share classes, voting and non-voting share classes. And in our opinion, as long as you're maintaining the vote, what you do with the non-voting, there's a lot of different areas that you can do that. But if you control the vote, you control the distributions, and you control the income, and you control the direction of the company. So that's really where we would suggest owners focus their time.
Well, in my mind, obviously the most effective way, in my opinion, would be to go to a bank, a financial institution that will put some restrictions on the business, but will not take over control. They will not take equity, and they will have, you will end up probably having to get the dollars you need on that capital raise to sign personally. But the minute you bring in outside investors, you up the game as far as disclosure, transparency, and bringing them in for their influence on how you operate the business. So I would always start with bank financing, and then I would go out and make sure I had somebody help me find all the options out there to raise capital before I make that decision.
Thanks, Ted and Chris, for your thoughtful insights, and thank you all so much for watching. We covered a lot of ground today. Each of these topics could easily be a video of its own, but we hope this brief overview gave you something to think about. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.